and welcome to another episode of the Diaspora Dialogue series with LA. I am Lillian Agbeyegbe, your host on this program. If you have been following us on the Diaspora Dialogue series, then you know what we are about. We are having conversations with members of the diaspora. We are learning about their journey from the homeland to the new land. Our conversations cover memories of the beauty of the homeland, the blessings of the new land, and the benefits of integration. We are working on changing the narrative that we all have the same story because we really don't. I've been bringing these interesting conversations from different members of the diaspora, and today is no exception. Today, I have the pleasure of having Boye Asenuga on the show. And yes, she's not joining me from Maryland. She's joining me from Massachusetts. Boye, you're welcome to the program.
Hi, LA. I'm very happy to be on your show.
Great to have you. In the interest of full disclosure, I knew Boye when she was in Nigeria. So if you think that we're getting on like a house of fire, it's because yes, we do know ourselves. But Boye, let's go back home and let's see, tell me a little bit about what influence. I know you ended up studying law. What was going on when you were growing up? How did that become the career of interest? And how did you end up there?
Okay, before I start with that story, I have to tell everyone I've known LA since I was about, say, 9, 10. Because she was friends with my cousin who lived with us, and she's always been so sweet and wonderful. So, LA, thank you one more again for, inviting me onto the show. So, to answer your question, when it comes to fashion, I always tell people it's my passion. It sounds very cliche, but when I was younger, that was all I could think about. And I think I got inspired by my mom, who was a very fashionable person,
Absolutely so.
who always said, first impression counts. Because, whatever impression people are going to have, of you is made even before they speak to you. Very unfair, but that is life. So growing up with a mom who was super stylish and who also made me comfortable in who I was, I gravitated towards fashion. While I was in boarding school, I would play this game and ask my friends, oh, what would you wear if you're going to the beach? What would you wear if you're going on a date? And if you didn't have an outfit, I would create one in my head. So fast forward me, finishing with boarding school, going off to Unilag to study law. And I noticed I continued in the same vein. I would help, my friends put together outfits. But I started designing and creating pieces after I saw some lovely Ankara dresses worn by some girls who came to Unilag from the UI. And there was just something very avant-garde and not traditional, but at the same time in Ankara, the dresses, they were just so fantastic. And I asked them, where did you get those dresses? They told me one woman in Ibadan makes the dresses. And guess what? I'm very spontaneous and adventurous. So I went to Ibadan, looked for the woman, and she made me some pieces. And I brought it back to Unilag and I sold probably about 20 pieces in like 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And then, I thought, hey, this might be a business. And that was how I started. So I believe was in my 4th year in Unilag. So if you're not aware, in Nigeria, to study law, we do 5 years in college, or what you call university, and 2 years in law school. So it was in my 4th year I discovered this dresses. I started making them. And by the time I went to law school, we were the first set of law students who headed to Abuja.
Okay.
And while we were in Abuja, you could either wear a suit or something traditional. If you know what the weather is like in Abuja, it is hot. So I thought, you know what? I would make these pieces because they were avant-garde. They were comfortable. They were less, what word can I? They were smart. What I mean is you could move in them. So I decided, okay, you know what? Let's try this in Abuja. By the way, Ellie, we were not supposed to sell anything in law school. If you were caught, you were going to be expelled. But guess what? The adventurous person in me, I took about, I think the first time I had 100 pieces. And my friends who had, who we all came from Unilag to law school had been wearing their pieces. And people will ask them, wait, where'd you get this dresses from? So when the 100 pieces landed, I am not kidding, Ellie. Within 20 minutes, everything got sold. My room had loads of girls. And they had to keep everything on the down low because, they caught me, I will be expelled.
I know.
That's how my journey started.
Oh my goodness.
And yes,
that is so remarkable. And interestingly, when you said you always wanted to do fashion, reminds me of I always wanted to act. And I remember when I said to my parents that I wanted to go and learn acting, it was just like I'd asked them to disown me. So I recruited one of my uncles, Uncle Peter, I think was it Uncle Mike? I don't know. Anyway, one of my uncles, and I told them, I said, look, I want to act. And I told my parents this, and my parents are like, that's not happening. And they told me, Lillian, you have to think the way your parents are thinking. Said, look, if you get on the streets, drive on the streets, you're going to be entertained for free. You're going to see free shows for women. So who's going to pay to see you entertain them? You're not going to make any money because you just all you have to do is just get in your car and drive around. And you're going to see people fighting or something or the other, and you're going to get entertained. So I ended up, that's how I didn't study acting formally, just like at the beginning, you didn't study fashion formally. So you still went the law school route, but fortunately for you, were able to tag your fashion interest along as you were going.
Yes. So the funny thing was that after law school, so my parents discovered I was doing this business while I was in law school, and my dad called and said, Boye, we don't, because my parents were not the traditional, Nigerian parents.
Yes.
Yeah. So my dad was just like, you know what? Just make sure you finish law school. That's all we're asking. If you want to make money, that's fine. But just make sure you finish law school. And I was going to, because I understood that, my mom said something. She said, no knowledge is lost. So make sure you finish law school. And I finished, and I remember the day I was getting called to bar in my wig and gown. I was like, there is no way I'm going to wear black for, the rest of my career with some stuffy wig. Because again, if you know about how we lawyers dress in Nigeria, it's very conservative. You can either wear black, navy, gray, or brown.
Yeah.
And it was just so stifling. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do this. So I went to my parents and I said, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to go into fashion. And God bless my parents. My dad was just like, okay, I have this space on the Ikorodu Road. I'm going to let you have that space. Let's see what you can do with it. So he gave me the space. And I went to town. I didn't have any knowledge or skill. I went into read, got tailors, and we started. And one thing I will say, this was one of the first, I was one of the first people who went into fashion, who was highly educated. So a lot of young ladies could relate to me.
Okay.
With my background in law, I understood that my word was my, bond. So if you bring me fabrics, I'm going to let you know, okay, this is when you're going to get it. If we're overbooked, I'll let you know. So initially, people were not happy about that, but people came to respect it. And another thing my dad was so happy about was the fact that I employed, within 3 months of starting, I had 15 tailors.
Oh, wow.
Because the demand was high. So my dad was very happy because my dad was, he was a proponent of teaching people how to make wealth.
Yeah.
He was very into teaching people how to, get out of poverty and do something for themselves. So he was
Mhm.
super duper happy about that. And then I would employ young girls. And some of them, I had a tailor. She was really good, but she got married and she was pregnant. And I
Hmm.
was like, you're really good. You know what we can do?
Hmm.
So this, my ready to wear dresses, why don't you make them from home? So buy
Wow.
fabric from her for her, give it
Mhm.
to her, give her like 2 months,
Wow.
and she will bring me back pieces. So we had that of, our ready to wear dresses, and then we
Mhm.
will customize, our shaping for
Yeah.
people. Mhm.
Oh my goodness. So you had this thriving business that was
Oh,
going
yeah.
on in Nigeria. You had
Yeah.
created a niche because for those who don't know why it's important to say we don't have enough, it's like eh, tailors and dressmakers are some of the most despised people in Nigeria because it's your fabrics and they tell you come, and when you come, they haven't even got started because they're
Mhm.
taking more than they can handle. So it was really
Yeah.
good that you had that system in place. And so your
Yeah.
business was thriving and going well, and you were there in Lagos. How did you now transition from Lagos to the US?
Okay, so the story of my life. So I was thriving. I was really happy. I was making a lot of money. And, I was really content being in Nigeria. But while I was in law school, I met a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And, she had met some guy I was dating back then. And for some reason, she heard, oh, we're not dating anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
she asked my friend who was friendly with her before I was friendly with her. She's like, oh, what happened to Boye and this guy? They're like, oh, they broke up. But you can ask her, Boye is easy like that. Talk to her.
Exactly.
And she was like, is she the girl that sells, the dresses? They're like, yeah. So she came up to me, bought some dresses and said, oh, would you like to date my brother? And I'm like, where's your brother in America? I'm like, not really interested. Because I really do want to move out of Nigeria. But we became friendly in law school. She was a super duper nice person. And after law school, we continued to hang out and she would tease me, oh, my brother, my brother. And for some, at a particular time, we're going to both be in the UK. And we decided, to connect. We went shopping together. One day, her brother called. And she was like, it's my brother, talk to him. And I spoke to him and we hit it off. He got my number and we started dating. He proposed to me. I had to move. And that's
Oh,
how I ended up in Nigeria. My customers were not happy at
at
all.
all.
But for me, I like the opportunity because okay, so I'm an Ekiti girl.
Okay.
And for us, knowledge is power. And I had no knowledge when it came to fashion design. So I
Mhm.
knew this was an opportunity for me to go back to school to
Wow.
study fashion design. So I was quite
Mhm.
happy about that. So that was how I ended up in the US. For love.
Wow. No, I know, I know. I'm like the things we do for love. That's awesome, awesome. And then you're coming to the US from Nigeria. And I know you've traveled. You were just in London before where you met your husband then on the phone. But were there some like surprises? Were there some like things that when you got to the US, you're like, wait, what? I'm
Yeah,
America? Like how? Like when?
yeah, a lot. So before we got married, I came to visit him and I had siblings here, but I hadn't been to America prior to coming to visit him, prior to us getting married. So the first thing I noticed was how lawyers advertised in the US,
Okay.
how you would have a huge, you know, billboard advertising your services, which was like a taboo back in Nigeria as a
Hmm.
lawyer. So that struck me as very interesting.
Yeah.
We were you had to be prestigious, soft spoken,
Mhm.
and very, very low key, but it was the opposite over here.
Absolutely.
What else? What else? So imagine coming from Nigeria to Massachusetts where the winter is brutal. Because that was a rude awakening for me. And also, what else? Those are the two things, that I can say, oh my goodness, I was like, what is happening here? Mm.
Yes, I know. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you're listening to the news, and half the segments is by injury lawyers, or
Yeah.
whatever lawyers, like, yeah, contact us and show those huge billboards. That's really interesting. And did you have any struggles with adapting to anything, any practice that, took some time to come to terms with aside from this in settling down?
Yes, I hadn't had time for someone who, before I moved from Nigeria, I had my connections, I had my establishment, my atelier, I had
Mhm.
things going on. And then this was just like a new world where I was just starting over. But luckily for me, fortunately for me, I had made customers in the US who had friends back in Lagos who buy my pieces for them.
Okay.
So I started working on that, network and
Mhm.
the connections I had. And I started a business, but the difference from Nigeria, where I had 15 tailors, was
Yes.
that in the US, I had to do everything myself.
Yourself. Mm.
So I remember the first, when I brought in a lot of the ready to wear dresses, I probably brought in about 500 pieces.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, because I thought this will be a good way for me to start, because I'm one of those people. I need to
Uh-huh.
make my money. So I thought, okay, this will
Definitely.
be a nice way for me to start making money.
Uh,
So I remember I had to teach myself how to sew. Because when I was in Nigeria, I didn't sew. I had
okay.
tailors I would direct. I had
Uh-huh.
to teach myself how to sew because maybe a customer wanted a dress and it was a bit loose or tight somewhere, and I had to adjust.
Fixed it. Yes.
Yeah, so fix it. And so that was really tough because I came in, from Nigeria having everything established, and I'm back to square one.
Mm. Mm.
And it was tough. I will tell you, sis, for a long time, it took me a while to build up the business and myself.
Mhm. Mm.
In Nigeria, I was fearless.
Yes.
Here, I wasn't as fearless.
Mm.
Why? I'm sure if we dig deeper, I might be able to, figure out why, but I just felt a bit more helpless here.
Yes.
But my husband was very encouraging because after some time I thought, you know what, let me go and work. And my husband was like, no, why would you want to work? You have something good going on. You just stick with it. It will grow. And
Wow.
I didn't listen to him. I went to work at Victoria's Secret, and after a week, I quit. I came back, and I faced my business then, enrolled in fashion design school. So yeah, it was tough. After having everything well established in
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria and moving here, I had to start from the scratch. We don't really have a lot of Nigerians in Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
also building that community
Mm.
was really tough. And I'm a very social person. So that was really tough. I would cry because I missed my friends.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And my siblings who were here were in Kansas and Georgia. So
Uh-huh.
they were nearby. So that was tough. That was tough.
I I know that thing about, you being in Massachusetts, Kansas, and Denver. I remember, initially when I moved to the US, if somebody comes from Nigeria and they're like, I'm coming to the US. We'll be like, oh, okay, I'll see you when you get here. And they get here, and I'm in New York, and they
Yeah.
are in California. And I'm like,
Yeah.
one thing we are going to see. And then they come and they're in Florida, and and so after a couple of, yes, we'll see, we didn't see, I knew better. If somebody says they're coming to the US, I'll ask, where are you coming to in the
Yep.
US? Just
Mhm.
because we are in the US does not mean that we're going to get to see. So I can understand, being in Massachusetts and having family and they being apart from you. But
Yeah.
given the sacrifices that you had to make, now let's talk about the blessings of the new land. What are you, what would you say are you most grateful for that, coming to the US has allowed you to accomplish?
So I'm really grateful about the fact that I could go back to school
Mm-hmm.
to study fashion design. And after I studied fashion design, I went back to school in New York at FIT to study apparel development and production. And that's like the technical part of fashion, where you learn how to mass produce pieces. Because like I said, I'm an APT girl. We always want knowledge. So
Yeah.
that has been a tremendous, blessing. Because
Now, do you
we
think if
all,
you were in Nigeria, you wouldn't have gone back to study these things, or did that, or would you have done it eventually, or because you were already successful, there was no need in Nigeria?
good question. I couldn't answer that question. I couldn't answer that question because it's a 50-50 thing, because I have friends who we all studied law, who went back, and started a second career, and they were able to travel out of the country,
Okay.
to further their studies. So I couldn't answer that. And I have some friends who could not realize their dream just because, okay, they got married, they had kids, and they were doing quite well in Nigeria. So why pursue additional education? So I couldn't say, but I just know God brought me here, and He gave me that opportunity. And as I went to school, I realized I had a lot in me to be what I wanted to be. When you're starting out, you're second guessing yourself, especially when I went to FIT New York, because I thought, oh, New York, FIT, that's one of the most prestigious fashion design school in the country. And I thought, oh my goodness, I had people working with Donna Karen, name, all the big brands. And I thought, oh, small me, what do I know? But when I started speaking with them and we had classes, I realized, because I was a one-woman show running a small business, I knew a lot. So that was me. I was so blessed by that experience at FIT. And we had this wonderful professor who facilitated the program I went into. He was just a treasure trove of knowledge. Yeah. So I'm really blessed by that, because this has continued to serve me with my brand Chicnicity. And also I work as a consultant where I help other people go into mass production. And like you mentioned, before we started podcast, I'm now teaching, passing on my knowledge, to the younger generation. And I'm so blessed by that.
Awesome. Great. Now, in terms of when you think back about Nigeria, what do you miss the most? If you could have the best of both worlds, what from Nigeria would you bring to the US?
My family and my friends. My family and my friends. I love my friends. If you know me, you will know I rock deep with my friends. So I miss my friends a lot, but and my family, my sisters. Everyone used to be in the US, but now I'm the only one left here. Everybody kind of moved back. My sisters and my one brother. So I miss them a lot. But thank God for technology. I'm able to FaceTime. We're able to WhatsApp video. And it's not, I work with it because, I have cake better than none. So for me, it's community. It's community. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, can't you make new, but you can't make new families. That's done deal. What about new friends? Is there a scarcity, as it were, of Nigerians to form friendship with here, or what's that kind of challenge with friendship?
So with friendship, I have made new friends. But you know how it is. You move here, you're working on your career, you have kids, you're taking care of your kids, you have a family. It's a bit more difficult to form deep friendships. Unlike my friends who we were in boarding school together, we Unilag together, we ate, slept, and did everything together. So they know, the little young boy. And also with friendship, for me, I hate second guessing myself. An open book. So if I have to explain myself to people, then I tend to pull away. And when we're all grown, you're formed in your way. And you don't have enough time to cultivate, new friendships. So
Yeah.
so that has been the thing. I had a friend who I met when I moved here, and she's maybe one of the few people, for some reason, were able to cultivate a very deep friendship. So
Oh,
I will, there are a lot of wonderful people in Massachusetts where there are not a lot of Nigerians, but most of the people I've met, wonderful, but everybody's just busy
yeah. Yeah. That's
with life.
the thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
people are busy with life. On the other side, also, you said your brother and your sister moved back home. So, is that in the horizon for you? Are you thinking that at a certain time you're going to move back home, or it's like, hey, we're going to make this. This is working, and we're going to stay with it.
So my plan, this is a question. So my plan is once my kids are in college, and thank God my first child will be going to college this fall. My
Okay,
plan is to,
congratulations.
thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. My plan is to 50-58.
Okay.
50% of my time in Nigeria, 50% of my time in the US, because my kids are more familiar with the US and they're born here, they grew up
Mm-hmm.
here. So that is the plan. And my husband's plan, I think he might be more of the 70-30, 70 here, 30 in Nigeria, because he moved here when he was like 17. I moved here
Okay.
when I was 27. So they're two different things.
Yeah.
So, but that's the plan. But to really right now, I'm kind of eating my cake and having it because I do
Mm-hmm.
travel to Nigeria a lot because of my work. Also,
Okay.
I'm building a team for my brand in Nigeria because it's cheaper to do it there. So I've been able to travel at least 3-4 times a year to Nigeria. So yeah, because I
Yeah.
do have business there. So yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask about that. How you able to use your advancement here to benefit the fashion industry in Nigeria, so that you have a factory going on there.
So I do not have a factory. That's a whole other story because I tell people that is one of the things I would love to do. And don't get me wrong, in Nigeria, the fashion industry is doing super duper well. So
Okay.
apart from me taking back my knowledge, which I do, I've also benefited from having friends connected in the fashion industry in Nigeria. That has helped me here also.
Okay.
So with regards to a factory, that would be my plan one day, but we still have to develop uh, young or people in the industry to have the skill
Mhm.
and the knowledge when it comes to mass production, because mass production is a totally different, game in the sense that it's very technical. So you really have to train and educate the people in Nigeria. So yeah, that's something I do
That's
hope
awesome.
to do.
That's so interesting. So let's swing back this way to the US, where you've been here
Mhm.
now for um years, decades. Has there been some obstacles that you think have been the factor of you being from Nigeria, as being Nigerian and the diaspora, has that helped or has that hurt in your journey?
Yeah, good question. So for me, growing up in the family I grew up in, my mom was such a confident person, and that rubbed off on me.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom would say, you know what? You go somewhere, you ask a question, it's either a yes or a no. So I had that same chutzpah of that same spirit even while I was in the US,
Yeah.
especially once I found my voice when it
Mm-hmm.
came to my environment. So I would I would hold on to that in a lot of scenarios. If something happened, I wasn't quick to judge.
Uh-huh.
And most times I realized that people are just people.
Yeah.
And, whatever race they are, people are
Mm-hmm.
people. If someone is hurting, they're going to hurt. you know, other people. So once I realized that, I was able to thrive because I would give people a long rope to hang
Okay.
themselves.
Mhm.
So when my kids were like predominantly white schools, I would always be that black parent volunteering
Mhm.
because I wanted to make it seen and known that, okay, black moms too will be part of the community.
Yes.
And it was easy to make friends, school friends, because I would always give everyone a long rope to hang themselves. So,
Mhm.
and invariably, no one did because I understood that people were just people, no matter what race they were from. And that helped me out a lot. Did I answer your
Yeah,
question?
absolutely. You did. You did. So what there wasn't anything. It was just being confident in yourself, knowing
Yes.
that people are just people, giving people a
Yeah.
hope, and nobody hung themselves. And you talked about your kids. So I'm going to go there. You were raised in Nigeria by Nigerian parents, even though we acknowledge that your parents were not the typical Nigerian parents. But were there some things you had to adjust with raising your own kids? Was there some marked difference in how, you had to do that? How
Oh,
did that
yeah.
for you? Yeah.
Oh, yes. So my kids call me a lion mom. So you know how the Asian people have what you call a tiger mom. I'm a
Yeah.
lion mom. Remember, I'm AKT. I'm
Yeah.
going to go back to that again. So when you're at school, there's nothing like a B or yes, you have to come home with all A's. I'm a very flexible parent. What I require from my kids when it comes to your academics, you have to be spot on. When it comes to being respectful to people,
Yeah.
especially older people,
Yeah.
there is no way you're going to call your friend's mom by her name. And they
Exactly.
know to tell their friends not to call me by it. You know, I remember when my kids were young, a friend was like, "Oh, BB," because that's like the nickname I use in the US. My
Yeah.
kids would be quick to correct them. "Oh no, call her Miss BB or Mrs. Asenuga." And yeah, and my kids knew not to call anybody older by name. Because parents would be like, "Oh, just call me Judy." My kids would be like, "No, we're sorry, Miss Judy. We just don't do that." So, from like I said, academics, being respectful and being kind to people. That my mom was someone who impacted me a lot. She was
Yeah.
such a classy woman, and she always told me that class was being kind to everyone, no matter who they were. So that was one thing I wanted my friends to be loyal friends, to be kind friends. And I will say, sis, my son is like 6'3". He's a athlete, all muscles, but everyone who came in contact with him would tell me, "Oh my goodness, you're Rennie's mom." Initially, I thought it was because we're, maybe the only black family. Most of the schools they went to, but no, it was just more because it was really respect with, parents, with grandparents. Like 2 years ago, he worked at this old people's home, and 2 to 3 times they wrote me letters. Old people in the years wrote letters for his manager to give to him,
Wow.
just telling
Wow.
him how nice he was, how respectful. Because when he started, I said to them, "You know what? You know how you treat grandma and grandpa,
I know,
my
right?
husband's parents. That is the same way I expect you to treat every
Everybody.
senior citizen you see at that place. You did not walk by them and not say hello." You know how I hate to sound this way, but you know how sometimes senior citizens are not, people don't really, they're not
Pay
nice to
attention
them.
to
They're just,
that. Yeah.
they don't thank you, pay attention. That's a better phrase to use or sentence to use. Yeah. But I told him, and this is not because of anything, because look, we just have to be nice to people, be nice, be respectful. And at his graduation, some older lady, I just saw someone pulling his cheeks, someone's grandma at his school. He goes to an all boys school. So I'm like, yeah, this woman, white lady pulling my son's cheek. So she comes up to my husband and I do to Rennie's parents. Apparently, they live at that old people's home.
Oh.
And she was telling me that she always used to tell me that you are such a polite young man.
Wow.
And she was like, little did we know that he was an athlete. He was doing all this community work and he was working and he was being nice. And that is all I want for my kid.
That's
Because, yeah. So for me as a parent, I'm flexible. He has dread, long dread. Some people will be like, how can you allow that? See, for me, looks, that's just something it's a phase. So far, my son is polite. He has good academics. He's doing well. Dreads, which I know he cut off someday. So yeah, when it came to how you behave, yeah, that was more important. So yeah, you will not be rude to me. You will not be rude to my husband. You won't be rude to anyone. But at the same time, allow them to social, hang out with American friends. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So very insightfully, especially given the culture here and how, people can get lost in terms of trying to integrate at all cost. You go back to Nigeria, you said you go back fairly regularly. Sometimes I hear this tension between Nigerians in Nigeria and people in diaspora. They're like, yeah, you come here, you think you're better than us. How's the acceptance of your integration there? People open, receptive? Do you find that you have to over-explain yourself, or is it just working well?
It's working well because I felt better than anyone because I lived in the US. That's a big mistake. If anyone is doing that, oh my goodness, because in Nigeria, people are so, enlightened. Nigerians are special people. They might be Nigerian, but do not think because you're coming from America, you know better, you're doing better. No. So I never go in with that attitude. I never go in with that attitude. It's more of, come see, come say, I learn from you, you learn from kind of attitude. And so people have been nice, I've been well received. I kept my contact. In fact, when I started my brand 7 years ago, my ready-to-wear brand, it was more my Nigerian friends who put me on blast on social media. But, oh my goodness, Boye is back. We're ready to buy. Yeah. So yeah, please, if you're in Nigeria, in the diaspora, we have a lot to learn. Yeah, from people in Nigeria because it's their terrain, they know better. So whenever I go back now, I'm more like, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn? And when they're on my territory, they're like, okay, it's your neck of the woods. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's the attitude I've always taken.
So tell us a little bit about your ready-to-wear. Where can people find it? What do you make?
Okay. So my brand is called Chicnicity, which means chic in your ethnicity. And I started Chicnicity because I wanted to blend the old and the new. So your podcast is so apt in the sense that that was exactly what I wanted to do, to eat my cake and have it. The two cultures of living in Lagos and in Boston. And I wanted, like I said, I've been in the country for 21 years, but I didn't start Chicnicity until 7 years ago. And what I wanted were pieces, ethnic inspired, but modern enough for you to wear anywhere. Right. I didn't want pieces where people will see it and think, okay, Lion King, or, yeah, I wanted something that didn't look like a costume. Thank you. I had nothing against dashikis, but I didn't want dashiki looking things. I wanted contemporary, modern pieces where you could wear and anyone from any race would think, oh my goodness, nice dress. What an interesting print. So what I did was, marry my culture with my knowledge of fashion. And I started Chicnicity. And I remember the first person in America who got a piece was my bank officer. And she's not Nigerian. She's American. And when she bought it, she was just like, oh, I love your dress. I'm like, oh, it's my brand. She's like, oh, what's your website? So that really made me know that I was onto something. Yeah. So Chicnicity is the brand. Where can you purchase Chicnicity? Chicnicity.com. We're also on Instagram, ChicnicityLLC.com. We're on Facebook, Chicnicity facebook. And we're in boutiques all over, not all over, in quite a number of states. In the US, we're in some states in some countries in South America.
Oh, wow,
We're in
that's awesome.
yeah, we're in Ghana, we're in Nigeria, and then of course our website. So if you do have any questions, we have a chat box on our website. Ask. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And yeah, that was why I started Shipment.
Awesome concept. Well, it's been fantastic talking to you, getting to learn, even though I knew you yet. But hey, knowing that you've been pursuing this passion interest on the side and how the thing blew up when you were in Unilag and the store and coming here, giving the opportunity to go back and really study, still going back to Nigeria with the attitude of learning from, the industry there and teaching whatever it is you're learning, a mutually beneficial exchange, raising your children in the US, but keeping the culture of respect. No calling parents by name, no acting like people are invincible and all of that. And then really just like, where are my friends, my cool friends?
Yeah.
And I transport them. It's fantastic conversation. Is there anything you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered, you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes, I forgot one other very important place you can buy Shipnicity. We have been blessed to be in a big retailer in the US, HSN, the Home Shopping Network. Mm-hmm. So you can also get our pieces at hsn.com, or sometimes, on the channel on TV, we have our pieces. So that was one thing I missed out, and I, would like to people an opportunity to also visit HSN to buy a piece. But apart from that, yes, be wonderful. As you can see, I love talking. It was wonderful being on your podcast. And thank you for thinking of me and inviting me to be part of it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Listeners, this is Diaspora Dialogue Series with LA. We're having these conversations with members of the diaspora. We're looking at everything from what we were doing in our homeland, how we are settling in the new land. I call it the beauty of the homeland, the blessings of the new land, and the benefit of integration, because we're working within our communities, outside our communities, raising children. The story she shared about tyranny and this, just how people are so amazed that the young man can be so tall and everything and still very respectful. So we're making our own differences, making our impact one way or the other. Don't forget to join me for the next episode. I'm going to have somebody else joining us. But hey, as you listen to this podcast, let's hear what you think. What's resonated with you? And remember, you can like and share this podcast and make sure somebody else knows that we're having these conversations here. But yeah, thank you for talking to me.
You're welcome here.
Bye, everyone. I'll see you some other time.
Ishe,